Hey there, I'm Lainey Lipsky, parenting coach and master teacher. Parenting is hard. I totally get it, and I'm here to make it easier for you. Especially if you had a tough childhood or you've got a tough child now, I've got your back. So take a deep breath, relax, and check out this clip from my coaching group this week. And remember to hit like and subscribe if you like my vibe. Let's get started. This is for my husband. I know I have asked about this before, but we are really struggling with the girls not wanting him. I'm doing my best to make sure they still are needing him and asking him for help, but it's really wearing on him. Yes, he needs to not take it personally. They have him all day long. He's the go-to, the default. He's the one they get to take for granted for this time in their lives. That's kind of the deal, and they don't have you as often. If you want to have some space around that for you, then I recommend that you stay out a little bit, give yourself some time to have your own space between when you come home and when you interact with the kids, because when you come home they're going to want you. That's kind of how it is by now. And so there's a lot of self-talk around that too, that you can be doing, that your husband can be doing, to just for him to say, you know, I like they it's not a rejection. I mean, it is a rejection, but it's not actually a rejection of him. And it doesn't mean that they don't love him, you know? I think something that he could say to himself is, they really miss their mom. They want to be with their mom right now. Like, I get a little vacation. But the reason it's wearing on him is because, in my opinion, is that um, is that he's taking it really personally, and he's taking it hard, and he doesn't have to do that to himself. Okay. For nighttime, for example, we do our routine together and then we take turns putting each girl down. I put down one night and he does the other the next night, and then we switch over every single night. Whoever gets him will start kicking and screaming, I don't want Papa, or I don't want you. And we tell them that's no, that's how we do it. We switch every night, but yeah, taking turns every night at 4-year-old and 2-year-old, they're not going to understand that. What they understand is she has the one I want. Um, I don't have the one that I want, and it's the switching off makes sense to you, but I'm not sure that that's making sense to them. And it hurts both of your hearts. You know, things need to change, and he needs to work on not yelling, but it's really upsetting to him. And right now, he's not home that much either. They're at school or daycare most of the day, and sometimes he comes home after me. They see us about the same amount of time now. Okay. So I would just say that this is a thing where I really encourage him to let it go, like water off a duck's back, and to just say, you know, for whatever reason, for whatever reason, they're more into mom right now. Like it's normal for them to be very attached to you as young kids. It's really developmentally very normal. And believe me, when they're teenagers or tweens, they're probably going to, most likely, they're going to reject you more and want to be around him more. That is how developmental stages work. So I encourage you to enjoy this time of being connected to them and them wanting to be around you, and you modeling being the woman that you want to be so that they can be the woman that you're proud of and that they're proud of. And for your husband to enjoy this time where he's like, okay, I saw them and they're not that into me right now, and they will be later. They're going to be more into him later, especially if he is a warm, soothing presence. So how can he pick up the slack? Like if the girls are more into you, maybe he needs to do more stuff around the house. Maybe he needs to say, well, you've got the girls, you've got your hands full. I'm going to clean up the kitchen, or I'm going to take care of dinner. And it'll be more pleasant for everybody if he's not fighting against it as much. I guess the question that I would put to him would be, what meaning is he making out of them not wanting him? Is he making a meaning that they don't love him? Is he making meaning that, and he can watch this video if it will help him. I don't love it when the moms try to teach all this stuff to their husbands. It doesn't usually go over very well. Um, but for him to say, well, I am yelling a lot, maybe he has guilt around that. Maybe he's thinking that he's a bad dad and that this is just confirmation of that. So he needs to do what he needs to do to be proud of how he's parenting and to learn about yelling less. And so that when they are not wanting him, he doesn't take that as a conviction or sentence or validation of his fears that he's not a good dad. Because he's there and he's present and he's doing his best, which makes him a really good dad. And he needs more evidence from himself and his own actions that he's doing a good job. He's doing the best that he can. Does it mean that he can't get better? No, of course he can get better. Can he learn how to stop yelling? Absolutely. We're going to be talking about that. I meant to talk about it today, but we'll talk about it this month because my book is coming out next month around stopping yelling. And I'd be really excited to have you guys in the group for that. It's going to be a separate group. And yeah, we'll work on that stuff together. And that'll be awesome. It'll be good. It'll be good. But in the meantime, for him to see like what truth is he afraid that it's really tapping into? Or what belief does he have? When they tell me they don't want me, what it makes me feel is I'm a bad dad, right? He's got to unpack that and say, well, let me look at all the ways that I am a good dad. Let me look at the ways that I'm trying to be a better dad. Let me not make what they're saying mean all of that stuff, which is really hard. That's a hard thing to do. It's not easy. I make it sound simple, but it is simple, but it's not easy. So, okay, so for bedtimes, yeah, I would say try doing it together, see how that goes. But if bedtime becomes you're doing it together and he's being rejected and that doesn't feel good, let him give them like a big daddy bear hug, good night kiss, good night hug, tell them how much he loves them, and then say good night and let you do bedtime, like the final bedtime, if that's the way that it's going to go. Like what I would say, do it how I don't have the answer, but I don't have the way, but the answer is do it in the way that feels best for you guys. That's the answer. So that'll take some experimentation, right? You can try just doing it yourself. If there's still rejecting him and that doesn't feel good to him, then don't push it, don't force it. So that but while you're doing bedtime, my hope is that he's taking care of something else so that when you're done with bedtime, you're not facing a kitchen full of dirty dishes or a pile of laundry that needs to be folded. Like have this conversation with him beforehand so you're dividing and conquering. So that by the time the kids are in bed, you and he can sit together. And even if it's just for 5 minutes before one of you conks out, to be like, okay, like we did it. High five, pat on the butt. Like, tell me about your day in a nutshell, 2 minutes, and I'll tell you about my day in a nutshell in 2 minutes. And like, we're kicking ass. Like, this is great. Good job tonight, you know? So let him have lovely moments with them and as much as possible. You don't want to take him out of the picture and they are just happy about it and never want him again after it. Like, so that's your fear is that they're never going to want him again after that. You have to let go of the outcome. If it turns out that you're the one doing bedtime and that's the thing that you do, first of all, I guarantee you that that's not going to be the case because eventually nobody's going to do their bedtime. They're going to do their own bedtime. Um, what is a way for him to get in the picture? Where can he be in the picture in a positive way? Because what I don't want is for him to be in the picture in a negative way, where you're forcing daddy, to do things or forcing daddy on them when they're like, we don't want him, and he feels bad and they feel bad. And it just creates heaviness and pain in your family, right? So where can he be in the picture in a positive way, you know, where he's not yelling, where he's not having his feelings hurt? Part of this is work that he needs to do around not having his feelings hurt. And part of it is recognizing that, like, this is how it's going to be. If you want to take turns doing bedtimes, like my suggestion honestly would be that you're out of the house and he just does their bedtimes if that's a positive thing, to not put them in a position where they're choosing one over the other. So again, I don't have the solution for you, but the answer is to do it in a way that feels good. And what you're doing now isn't feeling good. And it has to feel good in order to be good, right? You can't just keep insisting that it's going to be feeling good when it's not working. It's not feeling good. So find ways to keep him in the picture. And maybe that's not around bedtime. Maybe he does bath time in pajamas for right now when they're younger. He won't be able to do that forever, nor should he, right? Or maybe he's the one who, again, like the more positive interactions that he can have with them, especially since he's struggling with yelling, the better it will be for all of you. Just hug and kiss. Maybe he does a love bomb before bed and that like you guys get into a nice rhythm with that. It's not going to change overnight probably, but he needs some positive reps with them as well. Does that make sense? And I understand your fear that they're never going to want him again. Um, but you can't make the decision now based on a fear of what forever may or may not hold. So I want you to shift things in a way where he can have more positive interactions with them. And that may mean taking him out of the bedtime picture for a little bit. Maybe that would be a nice break for him. Maybe he'd be happier to see them the next morning. Maybe he'd be more inclined to, I don't know what, do breakfast with them or do something special with them in the morning. I'm not sure exactly like when the scales are going to be balanced out, but they will be balanced out over time, but only if he's having more and more positive reps with them. Because if he continues to insist that he's part of it and he's feeling bad and it becomes more and more negative, then they are probably more likely to never want him again. You know, never's a big word. It's usually an unrealistic word, but you're increasing the chances that they're going to feel that way. Whereas if you kind of are like, okay, let's find out where we can be positive here. Let's find out what can feel good. I spoke to somebody recently about, you know, finding the parts that are working and removing the parts that aren't working. So find what's working for you in the bedtime routine. And when you start bumping into the parts that aren't working, remove that. The rest of the structure is still there. It doesn't mean the whole tower, it's like Jenga blocks. It doesn't mean that the whole tower has to fall because you're making an adjustment. When you take a one block out of a Jenga tower, it's not supposed to fall, right? Because the structure is there. And the more you take out, of course, the less steady the structure gets. But you are able for a long time to take out little pieces when you have a structure without it collapsing the whole thing. So think about that. What are the little pieces that you can remove that aren't feeling good to leave in place the things that could feel good? Just play with that idea, see, but really give it a try. Really give it a try. All right, and make sure that it works for you. Also, don't forget yourself in there. It can't just be you giving up everything at the expense of, for the sake of your kids, at the expense of your own well-being or happiness. Okay? And this is the work, and then you're doing it. I really hope this video was helpful to you. Feel free to share it and use the comments to ask a question or to request a topic for the future. We've got links below for free support with things like discipline, teaching your kids how to be more gritty, and how to be more patient with your kids, plus access to my free coaching group. So be sure to check those links out. And remember, we get one shot at parenthood. Our kids only get one shot at their childhood, so let's make it count. Click like and subscribe, and I'll see you soon.